Welcome to our online antenatal class with Sister Ingrid Groenewald. Today's topic is about general baby care. So welcome, Sister Ingrid.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be with you today again. And like you said, today we're going to talk about, about baby stuff, real exciting things, how to hold your baby, how to burp your baby, swaddling, and then also how to, to safely put your baby down to sleep. So a whole mouthful of things. And so if you have your own baby, perhaps, or even a doll, you can even bring the doll close and you can practice some things with me. Okay, so I also want to introduce you to my baby for today. And this is my baby, Erica. She has been with me since I've been about 4 years old. And at the beginning, I played with her, and she really taught me even baby care stuff, how to actually play safely with the doll, and then later safely with my own babies. And now she's helping me to also teach other moms and dads how to do things, baby care with babies. So, okay, so if we start with holding your baby, how do you safely hold your baby? Remember, perhaps just by thinking about your own neck control, while you're sitting here, we have mastered the technique of actually keeping our heads straight. Okay, these neck muscles are quite strong, and so for us, it's not a problem. But if you think about a newborn babies' heads are actually quite heavy, and then also the neck control is actually not good at all. So you always have to think about the neck control when you are handling your baby. You can't just pick up the baby, on the body and think that this is going to be safe. It's not safe because you're going to actually hurt the neck control, the neck of the baby. So how to successfully or safely then do you pick up your baby? And one of the ways is by taking your forehand or the forearm, and by putting the forearm under the baby's head and neck area, and then with this hand you can just hold onto the arm, and then so baby is now lying on your forearm, and with this hand you can actually pick her up. So in this position she is quite safely lying in your arms. This is how you would be able to even carry her around. You can obviously have her then closer to you and just slide her head more into the elbow area of your body. Okay, so then you can walk around with her like this, or even if you have to like bounce her or shush her if she's unhappy, so all sorts of things that you can do with her. But this is normally a safe way to think about the head and the neck control. If you can also pick up her arm or her body by resting her head on this part of your hand. So if you lift the baby, and if I lift Erica, you can see that her head is actually lying on my hand here. And so you have some control also here, and she's quite safe, in this position. And then with this hand, you can just pick her up and just carry her around. And remember, babies are also little people. When you carry her, she's really going to focus in on your face. So from birth, as a newborn baby, try to really focus on her as well, and talk to her and have eye contact with her, because she's really going to engage with you quite a bit. She will learn to smile within the next couple of weeks. So usually by 6 weeks, babies are able to smile. And this is where there's lots of communication and interaction between yourself and your baby. Right. Then if we think about the neck control, what can you do to try to strengthen the neck muscles? And this is where tummy times comes in. I find that a lot of people think babies have to be a little bit older before you start tummy time, but tummy time can actually start happening from birth. So from when you have your baby, from the really first day, you can actually start doing tummy time. But tummy time is really important to also know that it should be something in the day when she's awake. So it's not a sleep position. That is not safe for a sleep position, but it is an awake position. So if your baby is happily awake, that is how you would actually then put her on the tummy. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how you do this. You basically take her and you position her on her tummy, turn the head to the side, and I'm just going to lift my baby's arms to the front. So in this position, she's lying on her tummy, she's looking to the side, and what will happen very soon is that you're going to start noticing that she's pushing herself up with the shoulders, you know, with the arms and the shoulders, and that the head is going to start moving to the side. If you do this every day, you're going to start noticing as the time goes by how strong she's actually getting. So it's really an exercise for these muscles. So this is really good for her to actually do that. Okay, so I'm just going to turn her around again, that you can actually see. This is my, you know, she's now had her tummy time, and perhaps she already had a feed now. So what then, how do you successfully burp your baby? Now, burping, I just have to also explain, is that it's really winds that form in the stomach. I find most people are under the impression it's somehow a wind that is swallowed with a baby, with a feed, and it is possible. You know, winds can be swallowed like that, but in most cases, winds are also developing in the stomach, and it also happens to us. When we are eating something and when your baby is drinking milk, what happens once it goes into the stomach and the body actually absorbs that milk? You know, it actually causes a gas release in the stomach, and that is what the wind is really in the tummy. So for a baby, it is something that your baby definitely feels and is uncomfortable with. For us, we don't really feel it anymore. We're so used to the feeling, so you're actually unaware of it. Okay, so but for a baby, you know, you have to wind the baby, otherwise baby might be very unhappy and upset, you know, because the baby is not quite, what's the right word, is not happy, is not feeling well, you know, something is there that is causing some discomfort. And how to do that is that if you hold your baby, again, you have to have the hand behind her head for, you know, for lifting. And then for most moms and dads, it works quite well. I'm just going to put my baby to sit nicely. And then with this hand, I put her head on, resting on this part of my hand again. So she's leaning slightly forward so that she's resting on my hand. And then with this hand, I can actually wind her. So you can really rub, you know, in an upwards direction, so it's harder up, softer down. So this kind of movement that you can actually do with your baby, some people do like just by patting, and it's really trying to imagine that there's a, you know, use your imagination and think there's a little wind sitting there, and you have to somehow get it up. Okay, now again, there's no point in doing this so softly. You know, I find especially for first-time parents, one is so worried you're going to hurt her and it's going to be uncomfortable for her. But she's actually quite sturdy, so you can really tap her, wind her, you know, by doing this kind of motion. Very likely you're going to start seeing at some point that she starts wriggling. And the trick there is not to stop, because what actually happens is that this little wind is moving upwards, and now she's uncomfortable and she's doing this. So if you continue, you will actually see that the wind comes out. Okay, she might actually then burp and you can hear it. Then you can just have a look again. And a little tip here is that if you open the mouth, if you pull the chin down and you look at her tongue, if the tongue is still attached to the palate, that is a sign of a wind. Okay, so then she still has a wind. If it's loose, if the tongue is lower, then you also know that, no, this is fine, the wind is now out. Okay, I just want to show you some other techniques of how to also wind her, and that would be by taking a stochdoek or a nappy, whatever you call it, by putting it over your shoulder, and then by taking her and putting her over your shoulder. So if I turn like this, you can actually see, you can even have the little arms, you know, in this position over the shoulder. And so she's in an upright position. Now again, you can just rub her back harder up, softer down, and then, or just by patting. You might even bounce like this. A tip here is that if you have one of these exercise balls, the exercise balls work brilliantly for babies, because you can also sit on the exercise ball, have your baby on your lap, or have your baby over your shoulder like this, and then the bouncing on the ball with doing this, that rhythm often is very soothing, first of all, and then often one actually finds that burping actually is quite easy. So I would definitely recommend an exercise ball to use that if you have a baby. Okay, so you can do that with the burping. Another thing that you can try doing is, in this position, you take hold of her bum with this other, so this hand supports her body, that she's not falling down, and then this hand of mine is taking hold of her bum, and you're actually lifting the bum slightly, so you're lengthening the spine, which immediately makes it easier for the wind to come up, because otherwise the baby's spine is in a C curve, really, you know, in this position. So like that, it's also more tricky for the wind to come up. So if you're lengthening the spine, it's easier. Okay, so if I lift my baby's bum, immediately the back is a little bit more straight, and then you can give it a little bit of a wiggle. And remember continuously to talk to your baby. Your baby knows your voice. She smells you. She knows this is my mommy. So just by doing this, you know, you will actually be able to burp her. Okay, but this is also a thing that every person finds their own technique. This is, you know, where you will find something really works well for you to wind her, and then also perhaps for your partner, you find that your partner might have a different way of winding your baby, and that is perfectly fine. You will find your way of how to do this successfully. Okay, so if we then think even going further as to then what else, how else do you have to, you know, what can you do to keep your baby safe? And that would be by thinking about sleeping, because remember, your baby as a newborn actually sleeps a lot. You know, babies do, you know, feed and then sleep and then feed and sleep. And that is something that continues throughout the day. So lots and lots of sleeping. And now, how do you put your baby down that is actually safe? Because something that we know actually is a risk always, or something that is a concern, is that you get something called SIDS, which actually stands for sudden infant death syndrome. Another thing that people have termed it is cot death, and it's really frightening to think about that, and it's something that can be very stressful, you know, to think about, and you obviously don't want this to happen. So what can we do to try to avoid that? Okay, and that is one of the things, to look at sleep by thinking, you know, what can you do to have it really in a safe environment for babies sleeping? Okay. Now, first of all, the safest way for sleeping is on a flat surface without things around. I find often people have all sorts of teddies and soft toys in the cot, and it looks really cute with all these things. You know, it really looks very much like a baby environment, but it is a risk to have things lying around. The risk is that your baby can actually perhaps getting into a position with a soft toy close to the face, and that can cause problems for breathing. So we recommend, by taking away everything that might be of a, you know, for a problem for your baby. So take away, when it's sleep time for baby, take away all the soft toys and everything that is soft and fluffy around the bed and in the cot, so that you can safely put your baby down. And now, before we get to putting baby down, how then do you wrap your baby? And I'm just going to turn my baby like this, that you can see. And this is where a lot of times people wonder about swaddling. How do you swaddle your baby? You know, do you dress, or how do you put the blanket around the baby, or how do you do this? Now, swaddling, and I'm going to show you practically how to do it. But swaddling, I would say is not something that should be done with every nap time, because you're actually teaching your baby that this is very nice, being really secure, and your arms and everything, something is really tight around the body. Remember that your baby currently is in that position. You know, your baby is lying very wrapped up really in your uterus. So, you know, so the baby's quite used to that. So it can be something that is very soothing for baby, but it is best to keep that swaddling trick like a little trick up your sleeve, so that if you find that you have a very difficult day with your baby's not settling no matter what you do, then to say, okay, I'm going to swaddle my baby because it's very likely that my baby's going to enjoy that, and then we'll settle. Okay. If you do this with every nap time, it can become a bit tricky, because it's something that we don't recommend to swaddle anymore once the baby can start rolling. And that is a concern, because rolling happens from about 3-4 months, some babies even sooner than that. So you can understand that it's actually a short time that your baby is actually not rolling, if you think about it. So the risk with rolling and swaddling is that your baby can actually get into the position of being on her tummy. And then because the arms are really wrapped up, she cannot actually change position or put herself upwards, and that is a cause for SIDS. So we're trying to avoid swaddling once there's movement starting to take place. And if you've taught your baby now that there's always swaddling with every nap time, you might run into some problems on how to get your baby to sleep actually if you don't swaddle your baby. So try to avoid that and only swaddle her when she's really upset. So let's assume my baby Erica is now very unhappy today. So how to actually then swaddle and swaddle safely? If I take my blanket, and you take a very breathable light blanket, you can even use like a muslin cloth, something that's very light and breathable, and you just fold one of the corners. You can just actually fold down. So I'm just going to put her here, and I will lift up my baby that you can see nicely. Okay. Then I'm taking and I'm holding the head of the baby like this, and I'm putting her that the shoulders come at the top part of the blanket. You take the shorter side, fold it over the body of the baby. I don't know if you can nicely see. Then just straightening the blanket, and then this bottom part where the legs are, I'm loosely putting over the legs. The legs are quite important, that it shouldn't be tight around the hips and